Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 1977 underrated, unheralded, Diamond in the Rough Rituals. If you go down in the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. This film, I agree with exactly what Ivan Paychev said from Grand Illusion Cinema on the back of this Blu-ray. A finely crafted and well-acted bit of wilderness slasher. This is in a lot of ways a precursor to the 80s slashers because it copies a lot. It doesn't necessarily copy, but it has a lot of the same elements from 80s slasher films. The stalk and slash stuff and so on and so forth. The straightforward plot, with likable characters, with engaging personalities and character traits, and a mystery involved with who the killer is, and so on and so forth. And the characters have to learn how to survive. And this was accused of being some low rent, cheap knockoff of Deliverance when it was released by many critics. I respectfully disagree with that. This is its own film. The only similarities it really has to Deliverance is the fact that it's a group of guys going on a wilderness trip, and they have to find a way to survive. That's really that's the only thing that they have in common. Everything else is different, from the tone, from the plot, from the overall threat. All of that is different, so I completely disagree with the claims that this is just some ripoff of Deliverance. Also, I really feel that this film, if it was given a wider release or was given a shot, some sort of marketing, it might have done better than it did, which it was not much at all, because sadly, despite people who were behind this film 100%, like Lawrence Dane, who acted in the movie and produced it, the director, and the rest of the cast, who did the majority of their own stunts in this film, despite the passion they had for the movie, it didn't end up finding a distributor, and the people that ended up getting it just sold it to get some money for it as a tax write-off. And as a result, it was stuck in rights hell for a while because people didn't know exactly who owned the rights. So it became one of those films that had like a VHS release back in the day. Code Red got the rights and released a DVD, but then it quickly went out of print. And thankfully, Scorpion has picked up the rights and has released a Blu-ray of the film. And this is the best the film has ever looked, and the best it will ever look, more than likely. The features are honestly just the same features from the Code Red DVD that are ported over. An interview with Lawrence Dane and Robin Gammell. There is a commentary track, but I don't know if that was ported over from the Code Red release or not. And, some trailers and so on and so forth. So, but then again, I wasn't expecting the film was going to get a whole lot of features, considering the director he's no longer with us. He passed away, honestly, in 1982, so he's been gone for a long time. So there's a lot of other actors who were in the film who aren't around to be able to do interviews. So it's one of those things where I wasn't surprised that there wasn't any more features. It's just really nice to have a Blu-ray of this film. Now, the transfer at times is a little bit rough. You can see some scratches on the print and stuff like that. But that's the only reason why is because they used the best material that they had to work with. Compared to the DVD, it's a much better print. It's just a little bit rough around the edges in a few moments. Now, when it comes to the film itself, this film is, in my opinion, right up there with Deliverance. I personally feel this is a great film. It's got great acting. It's got a really solid screenplay. It's got some really wonderful direction by the director Peter Carter, who after this he would do a film called High Point, and he did another film before this called Highballin'. He did a bunch of TV films. This is not a guy who really went on to do anything that was that impressive after this in terms of direction, but he really did nail it when it comes to creating a certain mood and atmosphere, creating this really just eerie, uh, unsettling feeling that permeated throughout the entire movie by really emphasizing the natural horror of the wilderness. He also worked really well with his actors. He shot a lot of the sequences on one take because the budget wasn't that high. Uh, and he worked really well with the cinematographer Rene Verzier. So yeah, Peter Carter, I cannot commend his direction enough in this film. It's one of those films that shows you that you can have a low budget movie and you can still have it look and feel like a bigger budgeted film if you have the right person behind the camera. And Peter Carter really did absolutely knock it out of the park with this film in terms of his direction. Even had some nice angles here and there. Used natural lighting really well. Really impressed with his direction and the cinematography. It really captures the beauty of the wilderness as well as the terror. And the script by Ian Sutherland. I personally feel this script is top notch. It's got some really fun, witty lines of dialogue early on that get you really engaged with the characters. This is one of those films that, yeah, it doesn't have a whole lot of character development, but it doesn't necessarily need it, because like a lot of slasher films that would come after it, it has these characters that are likable, they're enjoyable, they have certain character traits and personalities that are endearing. And the cast also had phenomenal chemistry with one another, so that also helped a lot when it comes to the overall likability of the cast. And Hal Holbrook, he is just absolutely amazing in the lead role in this film as Harry. This is, in my opinion, his best acting role. And if the Oscars and the Academy actually respected films like this back then, or respected them, period, his performance in this is easily worth of an Oscar nomination. It's easily worthy of an Oscar nod because it is right up there with some of the performances that you'll see in other really well-known, critically acclaimed films, like Apocalypse Now, for instance. I was really reminded of Martin Sheen's performance in Apocalypse Now with Hal Holbrook's role as Harry in Rituals. That's how great Hal Holbrook was in this movie. The rest of the cast, they were really solid too. And going back to the script by Ian Sutherland, not only did it have some really fun lines of dialogue, but I really feel that how it plays out in terms of a slow burn, building things up, was really effective. From just their boots being missing is what starts them questioning what's going on. And then it escalates further into whole beehives getting tossed at them with real bees, going through the river while there's hidden bear traps in the water that they don't know about, which is intensely suspenseful and nail-biting, because you know that there's bear traps there that'll fuck them up, but they don't know that they're there. So you're watching the entire sequence just biting your nails because you're like, oh my god, fuck, there's bear traps there. It's good. And so yeah, that was a really effective sequence in terms of suspense. And also, when it comes to the mystery of who the killer is, the script handles it very adeptly and very effectively. It doesn't even give away the origin of the killer. You get bits and pieces. You know that he's been fucked up and damaged by doctors in the past, but you don't know who he is. You don't really get to get that much, and I'm fine with that. I think that enhances the character, it enhances the mystery, it enhances the film, because it stays a mystery. It's not trying to explain something that doesn't need to be explained, because the film is every bit as effective without that explanation of who the killer is. Um, so yeah, I really, and there are other bits in the script too that are just really fantastic in terms of dialogue, character moments where you have just bits between the characters where they're talking about their lives and they're talking about their place in the world, and even stuff like Robin Gammell's character Martin just babbling while he's being floated down the river, about some experiment that was done on a chimpanzee, and then he's talking about how these killings are blood rituals, just stuff like that. And it's one of those films that there's so much meat on the bone when it comes to the screenplay for these actors to just really chew on and just really deliver some really powerful performances. And speaking of the actors, it's a cast that is comprised of 5 actors: Hal Holbrook, Lawrence Dane, Robin Gammell, Ken James, and Gary Reineke. You also have Jack Creeley and Michael Zenon, who are in it, as well as the 2 wilderness people who live in the wilderness. But the main cast is these 5 guys. There are 5 doctors, which that in itself separates it from a lot of films like it, because it's 5 doctors. They normally don't see a film that deals with doctors as the leads in a film like this, where they have to fend for themselves against some unseen force. So that's really makes it unique in that way. They go on their weekend retreat, which is a ritual. One of the rituals, for instance, that are featured in the film is the fact that they go on a weekend retreat together every year. And the other ritual is the form of killing that the unseen force in the film is doing. It's killing these doctors in ritualistic fashion. Uh, Going as far as to even like put a head on a stick, and to kill a deer and put a deer's head near their campsite, and burn a guy alive, and do all just all kinds of just really grisly, gruesome kills. Just absolutely just. I mean, it's the type of killing that's just intense. It's brutal, and in one instance, the guy's actually kept alive. It's like a piece of metal just rammed right into his leg, and he's just left there to die. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an intense film, and but what really, it's not just the kill, because the kills, it's not really about the kills, it's not really about the gore, because there really isn't a whole lot of it. There's a decent bits here and there. I mean, for instance, when the killer faces off with Hal Holbrook in the climax, and he shoots him with the shotgun and actually blows off his hand, that was done practically, and that was a good effect by Carl Fullerton. Carl Fullerton did the effects for the film, and he did a really nice job with the makeup effects of the killer and his scarred face, and the old age makeup on the killer's brother, and some of the other bits and pieces here and there that were needed for the makeup. It all looked quite realistic. It didn't really look too uh, too fake. It didn't look like that at all. So Carl Fullerton, of course, would go on to do a lot of work for a lot of other horror films, a lot of famous movies after this. He would even do some work on some Friday the 13th sequels. So this is a nice film for him to get his feet wet, so to speak, in the realm of makeup effects. But if you're going into the film looking for that kind of stuff, you're going to be disappointed, because that's not really what it's about. It's more of a character piece. It's more of a mystery. So that's really what it's more of a mystery and a drama with some horror elements. So yes, there's some slasher elements here and there, but it's absolutely more of a straightforward dramatic mystery with slasher elements. It's not like your typical slasher movie. So if you're expecting that kind of film, you're going to be disappointed. But if you're looking at it as more of a mysterious drama with some really strong, powerful performances and equally as strong characters and a very intriguing mystery that's tying it all together, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by this one. Um, I don't really know what's this. I mean, yeah, there are actually a few more things I want to mention about it. For one, I want to mention the score by Hagud Hardy. I thought it was a really pleasing and memorable score. There are moments in it that really do fit the lighthearted mood is trying to go for early on, and then other moments in the score that really do mesh and match with the really just creepy and eerie mood and atmosphere that the film is trying to have. It's the type of score that really acts in a lot of ways as the heartbeat of the film. And it seems like he didn't really go on to do a whole lot after this, and a lot of people, he's just kind of a composer that's fallen through the cracks, just like this movie. I mean, it's rather fitting that a lot of people involved in the cast, other than Hal Holbrook, I mean, Lawrence Dane, Robin Gammell, and Ken James, and Gary Reineke, these are guys who didn't really end up having that much of a career after this. Like, they did a few things. I mean, Lawrence Dane was in Scanners, and he did some other stuff. But Robin Gammell, I mean, he did a few other films, but he never really did anything where he really had as big of a role as he had in this as Martin. Uh, and Ken James and Gary Reineke, they weren't really in that much at all after this. And it's too bad because they all really did do great jobs when it comes to their performances, when it comes to their acting. The editing by George Appleby I also thought was excellent. There isn't a moment in this film where the editing feels like, oh, it's rushed or something needed to be added or something needed to be cut out. It didn't feel like that at all. Like everything fell into place really nicely. And the running time, about 99 to 100 minutes, it goes by pretty quick. I honestly didn't find it that boring. I know some people find it to be a little sluggish. I didn't really find it to be that way at all. It really got me invested early on with some really fun lines of dialogue and some entertaining character moments, and then it really got me captivated with this mystery. Like, there's some mysterious uh, person in the wilderness who stole their boots and left a deer's head for them, and now things are getting really weird and really strange, and then they start getting picked off, and then a beehive gets thrown at them, and then you're like, holy shit, and things escalate, and they keep escalating. And I also like that the film actually had some moments in the script and in the story where it's adding weight to these characters and to the film by talking about the importance of a doctor being willing to let one of their patients die instead of letting them suffer. That was a nice. I don't know if existential is the right word, but definitely is a deeper kind of commentary that you don't really see with films like this. So that's another reason why it really had a dramatic feel to it, is that it felt like there was this internal crisis that was going on with a lot of the characters in this that was being dealt with throughout the film, along with the killer who's trying to kill them, especially with Hal Holbrook's character. And it doesn't have one of those endings where it's unsatisfying or it's disappointing or it's frustrating. Uh, Harry makes it out alive. He survives. He's a lone survivor. He has a badass moment where he shoots the killer, and there's no sequel bait. There's nothing like that because this film didn't need that, and it wasn't the point. So, I mean, honestly, I love this film so much that I'm having a hard time coming up with anything that I didn't like about it. I like the direction, I like the score, I like the performances by the cast. I really like the story and the dialogue and all of these other elements. It's one of those films that, and even the killer. I like the idea that it's some vindictive former military man who was kept alive by doctors in the war and is walking the earth as this deformed monstrosity who should have just been left, who just should have just been killed instead of being kept alive in this misshapen hulk of a body. So yeah, I like that aspect of it as well. It's one of those movies that I can't really think of that much that would improve it or would make it any better. It's not for everybody, because if you're expecting a typical slasher film or a typical horror film, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to think it's too slow paced. You're going to think it doesn't have enough action. Uh, but that's not what I was expecting out of this film, and that's not what I got out of it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about Rituals except if I were to rate it out of 5 stars, I give it 5 out of 5. I loved this film that much. It got me emotionally invested throughout. I mean, I was downright close. I was really close to tears multiple times throughout the film because I really got invested in these characters that much. And it's a very tragic and dark movie too, but that's a part of its appeal to me. Interestingly enough, is that it's tragic and it's dark and it's unflinching and it's brutal. Uh, it's one of those things where it's rough, but I like that. I like that it's rough. That's something that really makes the film click and really makes it work. Is that it is so rough. This is the type of film that you just won't see nowadays. It won't happen. Uh, because you're not going to see a cast and crew of actors who are not supermodels unless it's a direct-to-video independent film. That's another thing I love about this film is that the cast is made up of, other than Hal Holbrook, a lot of really unrecognizable names and just normal-looking people. They look like it'd be your next door neighbor or your teacher or something, or your dentist. You know, it's one of those things that makes the film all the more relatable and all the more effective because you're able to be immersed into the film even more because these aren't larger than life characters. These are characters that are deeply rooted in reality. And I really do feel in a film like this where you have a survival wilderness movie, it really is all the more powerful when you have actors that are closer to reality, that are closer to the type of people that you would see walking down the street. So, yeah, I mean, I really, really, really enjoyed this movie, and I cannot recommend this film highly enough. Even if you end up not liking it, it ends up not being your cup of tea, I still recommend you at least give it at least one watch, because this is a movie that, like I said in the beginning, it's a gem. It's a diamond in the rough, and it does not deserve to be forgotten about and buried or left in a hole. I mean, this is a film that more people should be talking about, in my opinion, and more people should be seeing. And thankfully to Scorpion releasing, I think that's gonna happen because now that there is a easier and more affordable way to buy this film and to see it, I think there's going to be more people who are going to discover this film, like I have, and discover and uncover a film that might wind up being one of their personal favorites. And I really do mean it. This is definitely one of my favorite films of this era now and of this particular genre. If not my favorite film, to be honest. And I haven't seen Deliverance in a while, but I don't remember hating it. I thought it was all right, but I absolutely loved this film. So, yeah. So anyway, I don't know what else to say about Rituals. I've said enough already. Except if I were to rate it out of 5 stars, I would give the movie 5 out of 5. Like I said, 2 thumbs up, highly recommended. And thank you for watching. And as always, I will see you later. See ya.